Hi, in this video I want to look at how to play the guitar efficiently. Okay, so what does it mean to play the guitar efficiently? Well, when you play the guitar you use both your hands. One of your hands will do the fretting, the other hand will do the picking. In my case, left hand for the fretting, right hand for the picking. Now in previous videos I have looked at picking techniques quite a bit, so I'm not going to look at the picking hand. This video is about how to play efficiently with the fretting hand. So what does it mean to fret the guitar efficiently, to play efficiently with the fretting hand? Well, what it basically means is you're trying to minimize movement of the left hand, yet still obviously get access to all the notes you need to play. Now, I'm sure you've all seen videos, especially of rock bands, metal bands, etc., where you see the guitarists that, maybe taking a big solo or whatever, and their hands are going up and down the neck and across the neck and everything like that. And it looks very spectacular, but it makes you wonder, is this actually the most efficient way to play it, or is it just all for spectacle? And probably a lot of the time it is just for spectacle, to make it look good on a music video. When we're talking about efficiency, what we're talking about is trying to minimize all that movement. So why do we want to play the guitar efficiently? Well, the secret's really in the name, it's more efficient. And it's certainly not for spectacle on a music video, because you're trying to minimize hand movement, not make it look as flashy as possible. So what are the reasons we want to do it? Well, the first reason is by minimizing the amount of movement on your hand, you can reduce the amount of muscle usage and fatigue on your hand, meaning your hand won't get tired as quick. The less tired your hand is, the less chance there is of you making mistakes. Another reason we want to do it is because by minimizing the amount of hand movement we're doing, you can get to the frets quicker. And the quicker you can get to the frets, the quicker you can fret them. So that means there's less chance of you dropping out of time and also fretting a bit too late or inaccurately and making a poor note, a poor sounding note. And also, it's just good practice. It's good habit to get into it. Try to minimize your hand movement and play as efficiently as possible. However, just because playing a piece of music is efficient to one player, it doesn't mean it's an efficient way to play it to another player. It may be difficult, it may be impossible, it may be uncomfortable to another player to try and copy the way a different player has played it. So always, you have to make sure that to play efficiently, it has to be within your ability levels. Okay, so to illustrate what I'm meaning, I'll give you an example. So we'll go back to the piece of music at the start of the video, and that was a part taken out of a piece of blues music I wrote called Coast Road Blues. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but the notes did go up the neck to the 7th fret, but my left hand didn't move very much up and down the neck. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll play through it again slower and show you. Okay, and you'll see there, although it's going from the lowest fretted note is 3 up to 7, my left hand barely moved up and down the neck. Now, I would say that's the most efficient way to play that because it minimizes left hand movement. Now, I'll show you it again, but this time I'll play it where I start moving my hand up and down the neck. Okay, so I played that differently, still sounded the same, it was still the same notes I was playing, but I started moving my hand up and down the neck. I wasn't utilising the pinky. Now, I don't know how it looked on the video, but certainly playing it, it was far more awkward to play. I had to do a few takes because I kept making mistakes. So that's really what I'm talking about. The first playthrough I did it was what I would class as an efficient way to play it. The second playthrough I would class as an inefficient way to play through it. Now what I want to have a look at is using underlying chords and how to play these efficiently. What I mean by this is that when you're playing finger picking guitar like blues or folk music, often a lot of the notes you'll be playing, you'll just be forming an underlying chord and just playing the notes within that chord. Now the tendency is just to play that chord shape and just pick over it, but is it the most efficient way to play it? The answer I would give to that is sometimes yes and sometimes no. But don't feel that you always have to form the underlying chord underneath, because it may not be necessary. So in this case, when I'm talking about efficiency, I'm not just talking about how much you move your fretting hand up and down the neck. I'm talking about whether you're fretting notes on the fretboard that don't need to be fretted. And if that's the case, then it's no real point to doing it. So the best way to illustrate this is with an example. So the example I've got is Vestipol, and this is played on an open D tune guitar. It's in the key of D and it uses the chords D, G and A7th. Now most of it is played with an underlying D chord, which is played in the open position like this. But it does go and use these other chords as well. So what happens is it steps up into a G chord like this. So it goes. So that's a G chord, but you can see from where I was playing it with my fingers, I'm not actually playing the full G chord there. To play the G chord in the open D position, this is the strings you need to fret like this. But to play that piece of music, you don't need to fret with your index finger. All you need is like that. And it's easier to play like that, and it's more efficient in my opinion, so there's no point forming that underlying chord. To use this piece of music again, I'll show you when it goes into the A7th chord. So it goes like this. Like that. Now again, I'm only fretting one string at a time there. I don't need to fret any more. The underlying A7th chord is actually shaped like this. But there is absolutely no need to use your index and ring finger to fret these two strings here. So just don't do it. It's just inefficient, it'll just slow you down and it'll just lead to more mistakes. However, if you're more comfortable playing the underlying chord, then that's entirely up to you. Just do what's best for you. However, I would say that the less strings you have to fret when playing any piece of music, the less chance there are of mistakes, and thus the more efficient it is to play. I'll give you another example. So this is the first few bars out of Streets of London by Ralph McTell, and it uses a C chord and a G chord. So like that. And when you go to the G chord, instinctively you form a G chord. So you press down these two bass notes here, but you don't have to. Your only bass note you need is this one on the 3rd fret. So I would say it's more efficient to just not fret this note. So I'll try it again the way I would play it. Like that. And actually it's easier to play it like that, or I find it easier to play it like that. So what I'm trying to say really is, just because there's an underlying chord in a piece of fingerstyle music, it doesn't mean that you have to form every note of that chord with your fretting hand. It may be a case you just have to fret part of that chord, and it may be more efficient and easier to play it just by fretting part of that chord instead of the whole chord. Okay, so the next thing I want to say is have a look at what fingers you're using to fret each note with. Like I said, to play efficiently, you're trying to minimize hand movement and minimize the amount of strings you're pressing down. So that means you have to think about which of your fretting fingers you're going to use to fret each note. Now, most people have access to these 4 fingers for fretting, and you can fret any string with any finger. So you can have. So you've got to pick which is the most efficient and which is the best suited to your playing style. And this can be whether you're playing chords or playing single note runs and such like. So I'll give you an example here in chords of the D-G lock, which is a famous one. So you can play the G chord in quite a few different ways. So you can play it like this, you can play it like this, or you can play it like this. However, if you play it like this, you get far quicker and easier access to the D chord, like this. Like so, and you don't actually have to take your ring finger off that string. If you were to do it another way like this, you have to lift off those fingers and form that other chord like that. Now, it's not a big deal, you know, because you're probably all used to playing these 2 chords, but it's just slightly less efficient than the first way I showed you. An even less efficient way is if you're playing the G chord like this. Like that, and that's even less efficient and feels actually really quite awkward to do it. So you do have to think about which fingers to use. Now, if anyone was paying attention just a bit back when I was doing the Streets of London example, you'll probably have thought, was that really the most efficient way to play it? So I'll show you again how I would play it. Now, a lot of you would think you'd be better off using the 3/4, the pinky ring split on the G chord there, like this. Like that. But that's just not something I'm as comfortable with. I feel I can fret the notes cleaner and easier by doing it that way. And that highlights that sometimes your personal preference does have to take precedence. A lot of the tabs you'll see written, especially in more complicated music, will have the fret and hand fingerings on them. When I upload my tabs, I don't put fingerings on them, and the reason is because of this, because of personal preference and what's comfortable for you to play. I can put up what I think is the most efficient for me to play, and it may be the most efficient in terms of movement, but it might not be the best for you. So it's really something you have to explore on your own with each piece of music. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about quickly is about writing your own music and transcribing music to the guitar. And I would say you have to really think about the efficiency of playing and put it at the center of the piece of music you're writing. Now, I'm sure you've all seen it before. You've downloaded a tab off the internet, and you see this especially in classical music tabs. So you download the tab off the internet, you go to try and play it on the guitar, and you're just like, what is this written here? It just seems like an absolute mass of unplayable notes, and a lot of the time it actually is. What they've done is they've taken the notes off the piano score and just put it directly on the guitar, and they have never once thought about the efficiency or the ease of playing. So what I would say is, when you are writing your own music or transcribing a piece of music to the guitar, think about the efficiency of playing it. Think that you may have to leave out some notes, you may have to move things up the neck, you know, you may have to play things an octave out even, just so you can get that ease of play. Because if you can't play the piece of music and other people can't play the piece of music, what's the point in writing it really? Now, I'll go into this more when I do videos about writing your own music, but I just wanted to say that when you are writing your own music, just be aware to make it efficient and easy to play. Okay, that's all I really want to say about this. I'm going to do a couple more examples at the end, but just to summarize, I think you should always try to be putting efficiency of playing at the center of your playing so that it's easy to play and you can get the best out of that piece of music. That means trying to minimize the amount of movement on the neck, trying to minimize the amount of strings you're fretting, looking at the fingers you're using to achieve this, and also keeping it within your own playing abilities. Okay, now I'll give you a couple more examples. Okay, so the next example I want to give you is taken from Coffee Blues, the first few bars of that, and that goes from an underlying A chord into a D chord, but there's a good bit of stretching in it as well, as you'll see in the music. I mean, you first may say, let's play an underlying A chord, but you're not going to be able to stretch up to that 5th fret. You could try playing the A chord with 2 fingers, but it's quite an awkward stretch. So what I find the easiest way to do it is just to throw a bar over the top 4 strings like that. And then play it like this. Like that, and that gets your middle finger ready for the slide as well. So that's what I find to be the most efficient way to play it. Again, you may find it different, especially if you've got longer fingers, but there's another example. Okay, so the last example I want to give is from Crosstown Blues, and this has a lot of single note runs in it. And the run I'm showing you here can be quite fidgety. Now, you can see it's on the 3rd fret, it goes up to the 5th fret and then down to the 1st fret as well. So the temptation is to maybe come at it like this. Like that, but I find that actually quite awkward to play. So how I play it is, I start here and then I slide down from the 3rd fret to the 1st fret like this. So that's how I found to be the most efficient way to play it, by putting a cheeky wee slide in between that 3rd and 1st fret, and that worked best for me. You may find it differently, but again, it's still all about trying to minimize movement of hand and thinking about how you're fretting each fret and which finger you're using. So anyway, that's a couple more examples. But like I said, each piece of music, you really just have to go through it yourself and you find what is the most efficient fingerings for you.